What made you move to America in the 80s?
Well, we touched a little bit on it early on. As I said, I came back from England,
Yeah.
set up in Golden, in a small way, handled them more than 10 or 12 dogs. Thought that I could make it, found out very quick that I couldn't. An opportunity came in 84 to start doing the groundwork to go to America. And as I said, I was very, very lucky to start with Pat Dalton. Pat passed on every bit of knowledge he had to everybody that worked with him. You learned a lot. Before me, Don Cuddy was there. Don and myself still correspond. And it went on from Pat. But I felt in the late 80s, I had to be my own man. I had to go my own way. Pat had no objection to that whatsoever. We raced against one another then for a couple of years. And I got an opportunity to go to Kansas, to the Woodlands. So I went out there. And the Woodlands started to go downhill a little bit. The prize money was quite good out there. It was about €800 for a top class win, and a top class distance win was about €1,000 at the time. It started to go down a little bit, and everybody in America, in the world, heard of Derby Lane. I wanted to go to Derby Lane. So I went there training for the Butlers, the Grey Meadows, and we had a fantastic 6 years. We won everything that was there. It was just very easy to go to work in the morning. And every time a truck came in, you never knew what was coming in, but you knew there was a dog coming in that could run.
Yeah.
I think we won three distance classics, 3 sprint classics, 4 derbies. Wow. It was an unbelievable spell. Then they decided to get out, and it left me high and dry. And I think when I started on my own, I think I had 2 dogs. But we were lucky enough, good people came behind us. And through the years then we continued on, and we had Kinloch Bray, and as a present the Butlers gave me Gray's Freestyle. She won the equivalent of the Produce Stakes over 550, but she really was at home over 660, and she won the Distance Classic for us, and she was our first brood bitch. And she went on in turn, and she turned Valoris turned Dreamy Blossom. So the line is still there. Dreamy, we have bred Dreamy Blossom to Premier Fantasy, was our last litter. And they've just come onto the track now. Won last night, two races, 2 wins. I've got a beautiful dog up in Southland. Dundrum is his name, after the show jumper. And he's won his last 2 races, but it's his style of winning them.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't necessarily have to be up at the pace. But the sprint in Southland is nearly 590 yards. So when I say sprint, it's 590 yards. And if you get under 32 seconds, it's a good time. Yeah. Because the track is very loose running surface. Okay, yeah. It's not hard and fast like Shelburne. Yeah. So you really need a dog that can come home. Yeah. You know, King O would have been a special one there, I think. Now, a dog like that, Heart Rumble, that could get it. Your 600 to 700 yard dog in Ireland with a little bit of early pace, like Pat's female at the moment, Volcano, Razzle Dazzle Marilyn, those type of dogs.
And do you think that there's a demand for the Irish dogs in America?
I think if they're marketed, yes. But the Americans don't know how to get a hold of them, because there is no advertising done by the IGB. Okay. They tried for a little while. They sent out a kind of a sales letter, but it was really a joke. Now with the modern day that you can watch on your computer over there, we can see every race in Ireland. So the people don't need a sales letter. They just want to know, is the dog for sale? Can this dog be bought? And I think if the IGB push it a little bit, there is no quarantine going into America, so you can actually buy your dog, get him sent to America, and he can be there in 3 days.
Brilliant. And the prize money in America is massive in comparison to here. Where do they get all this prize money?
Sadly to say, it's coming from the casinos at the moment.
Okay.
Back in the 80s, we were able to generate prize money in the 80s was nearly as good as it is on some tracks now, strictly from betting. You know, when 6,000 people would go to a track on a Saturday night. Okay. Now 6,000 people go, but 5,500 go into the casino. But only for the dog race, and these casinos would not have got a license. Yeah. So they call them racinos.
Right.
But only for the dog racing, so we make no apology for accepting their money.
Of course. And how many races would you have on an average night?
Oh, an average night at Southland, 20. And on a Saturday, 36. Derby Lane, 15 per card. But they would run 30 races on a Wednesday and 30 on a Saturday. Wheeling, which is another track where we race some of our dogs, on a Saturday they will run 34 races.
Okay. What's the testing like in America in comparison to, say, to here in Ireland?
They normally test 3 dogs pre-race. If they notice anything, they will test again after the race. But the brilliant thing about America is that we have the test results back within 72 hours.
Wow.
So if a dog runs on a Saturday night, his test results are back by Tuesday. They're collected after racing, they're brought straight to the university under lock and security, and they're tested. Now, how many are tested, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they wouldn't test 3 dogs per race, that would be uneconomical. But if any little thing, they will test.
Okay.
And the brilliant thing is the speed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's crucial. Because in a stake race, if a dog happens to run in the next round and then he comes up positive with a test for the previous round, well, you can wind up with a law case, because the guy that got beaten can say, well, that dog wouldn't have beaten me if he didn't test positive. So,
what's the security like at the tracks?
the security is very good. You cannot get into any part of the compound. Like, we don't train in our own area. We're all in a communal area. So in Derby Lane, there would be 26 kennel buildings. Each is identical to one another. In Southland, it's 18. Security 24 hours a day. You cannot get in without swiping a card. During the $1 million race, especially in the semi-final and final, the lock-up area where the dogs were kept was under camera security, plus the presiding judge's associate. So there was somebody there at all times.
Yeah. Mike, you're based in Southland, but your kennels are in Derby Lane.
That's correct. I moved up to Southland just about a year ago now. I was in Wheeling for 2 years before that, with Ryan Farms Kennels, Donnie Ryan, who was the very proud owner of Molotov, whose progeny are all over the world now.
Yeah.
Either through the female line or the sire line. He was one of the most dominant sires in the history of greyhound racing. And we came to an arrangement. I would keep Derby Lane. My daughter Catherine would run that. And by the way, she's doing a good job too.
She sure is.
And I moved up to Wheeling. I really wanted to assess what Wheeling was like. It's a speed track. 2980, 2970 for the 550. I then went down to Southland for Ryan Farms, where our sprint is a 32-second sprint. It's 583 yards. Southland, the emphasis is on distance racing. On a Saturday night, we would run 5 660s, 4 703s, and 2 820s on the card.
Okay.
They seem to like that. It's mandated that we have to carry so many distance dogs. They get a start every 5 to 6 days. Same way in Wheeling. Derby Lane, because of the lesser number of kennels, you can race your dog twice a week if you want to.
Okay.
We kind of like to keep it to 3 times every 2 weeks. So we would actually take a dog off, let him have a couple of days rest, and then put him back on. But from the time that you put him back on, he's drawn in on the next 2 cards. So you're not really missing that much.
Yeah.
I guess because of the number of tracks that closed down, the breedings are down. But it's all adding up, because there is still enough dogs to go around, but there is still a market there for outside dogs to come in. I know Paul Wheeler, I think, is looking at it at the moment, of sending maybe some of his Australian dogs over to run stake races. We're hearing that rumour. I haven't heard tell of anybody from Ireland since Pat. And Kerry Hills, which is Patsy Byrne, they were very successful in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Dan Ryan from Tipperary trained from there for about 15 years. But Patsy now is concentrating mainly, I guess, on the coursing in Ireland and tracking in England.
Yeah. Do you raise your own dogs?
We don't have a farm as such as what you would call it over there, but I've got about 150 to 160 at all times.
Oh.
60 would be on the tracks, and 100 would be the ones that would be coming through. They would be with Ryan Farms. They would either be with Federal Pearson, or John Dalton, Pat Dalton's son, raises some for us as well. And we keep ourselves covered like that. And then at 15, 16 months, you know, we assess how good they are and which track they go to, and we try and get it right most of the time if we can.
In Ireland, pups are sold 3, 4, 5 months onwards, but in America it's very different.
Yes, the main people that breed in America would be people who actually race themselves, or commercial racers or breeders. And they're very reluctant to sell. Now, twice a year we have the unraced sales in Abilene in Kansas. A lot of the Irish people come out from time to time. I see an odd face that I know out there. And the pups can make up as much as, when I say pups, they would be from 14 months to about 18 months, unraced.
Okay.
They race out there twice. And if you happen to win your 2 trials, which would be 4 to 5 dog trials, 6 maximum, in a really good time, you would get up to 35 to 40,000 euros for him. Then it steps down a little bit from that. But you would find it very hard to find young pups here to buy without going to the nationals, because, like, let's say I breed 100 a year. There is none of them for sale.
Okay.
Because I race myself.
Yeah.
But then you have people like Kenny Bealey, who would raise maybe 200 a year, and they're all for sale. But he brings them to the spring and the fall meet in Abilene, and they do what they do. And, you know, Kenny will sell all the way down. You know, some will make 4,000, 5,000, some will make up to 25, 35,000.
Yeah.
And that is the only chance anybody has of breaking in to the American scene as a dog owner, whereas in Ireland you go to any track and basically any dog can be bought there that night if the price is right. Whereas we don't.
The surface in Ireland is a lot less forgiving than the one in America.
Yes, it is. Well, like if you go racing in Ireland and you come back from the races, you're asked 3 questions. Did he win? What price was he? And what time did he do? Whereas time in America is completely irrelevant.
Is it?
It is. Your tracks here are built for faster times, faster times. Everybody wants fast times. Well, if you want fast times, you're going to pay the price. And in America, we're looking for longevity. We have 4-year-old dogs, 4.5-year-old, males and females, 100 races, 110 races, 120 races. I know some breeders in Ireland are very reluctant to breed off of the females. If they've had, depending on who you talk to, 30 races, 40 races. I knew one man, he'd prefer to breed off a bitch that never raced at all. Well, how do you know how good she is? Now, obviously, he can try them on the schooling tracks. But does a dog know that he's on a schooling track or a race track? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, oh, my dog only had a race in 5 weeks. But he could have been 6 times to the schooling tracks with that same dog.
Yeah.
That's 6 races a dog could have had racing for money.
That's true.
Instead of going to the schooling race. Now, our John Quinn from Gort was over with me in Kansas when I trained there. And he was amazed that the dogs would actually throw up sand going around the first bend.
Okay, yeah.
And it had kind of left my head a little bit because I'd been over here for a while and I didn't think about it anymore. And I'm saying, but all the tracks in America are like that.
Yeah.
There seems to be a half-an-inch cushion where the dog can go down and you'll see his paw print quite clear in the sand.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to Shelburne Park or wherever and it's like a concrete road.
It is.
And the females that we breed from, I mean, I would be considered probably one of the more successful small breeders. And most of our bitches would have had 50, 60 races minimum. Minimum. I'd be even looking for more. And they wouldn't have their first race till they were at least 18 to 20 months old. And I'd be hoping then they'd stay sound until they were 3. And soundness is something too that has to come into it. I mean, if you keep breeding on from a weak lion, well, that's what you're going to wind up with.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, a bitch or dog that can put in 40 or 50 races, never sustain a serious injury, you know, genetically there must be something right there.
True.
And now you're hoping they'll pass it on to their pups. And their pups will pass it on to their pups. I mean, at the moment, I'm 4th generation breeding some of mine now from the original one, Gray's Freestyle. She ran 50, 55 races for us.
Yeah.
And she bred right up until she was, I think we had our last litter at 8. And we adopted her out, and she had a good home until she was nearly 13 years of age, living with a lady down in Tampa.
Fantastic.
And we bred then our daughters, our granddaughters, and our great-granddaughters. And we raced them all, and the top ones then we breed from.
Yeah. Does live greyhound racing from Ireland have a market in America?
At the moment, I think they'll find it very, very tough to break into the market, because 6-dog racing for a start off, whereas American is 8-dog racing, is going to be a little bit of a no-no. The east coast of America doesn't take greyhound racing from even America.
Right.
So you're losing out on Philadelphia, New York. They may be able to break in a little bit into Boston, but that market has gone very small now because there's no greyhound racing in Boston. So your big one, if it was to happen, would be Florida.
Right.
Where there's 14 or 15 tracks operating, and some of them operate on a Sunday. So you would actually be coming in while they were having live greyhound racing, namely Palm Beach, Jacksonville, and places like that. It may work there.
Yeah.
But the 6-dog racing would be against it, I think.
And how many tracks are in America?
Florida's the big one. Florida's got between 14 and 15. West Virginia's got 2. Iowa has got 2. There's a couple out on the west coast, and basically that's it now. But Florida would be your main one now. That's the main bulk of the betting would be Florida.
What would the crowds be like at a normal meeting?
Saturday night is pretty decent on any of the good tracks. People will come out from the casinos. Now there is no casinos in Florida, so the Florida tracks operate strictly on live handle, plus the handle that's generated on the off-track OTB betting. If it's bet within Florida, the greyhounds get their fair share of it. If it's bet in the Cayman Islands and places like that, I'm sorry to say we get practically nothing from it. Okay. So we actually lose out on that type of betting, you know.
And what, like on a small meeting, what way would the prize money be? Would there be good prize money?
The prize money is adjudged weekly. So it's what's bet for the week is divided by the number of points that's paid out for the week. Like each race has its own number of points.
Okay.
Let's say an A 5/16 in Derby Lane would have 16 points. 8 to the winner, 4 to the second, 2.5 and 1.5, like that. So if the point value was, let's say, $100 a point, that's 800 to the winner, which would be about 600 euros. Southland would be treble that. Because of the casino.
Right.
Just because of the casino. And Tri-State and Wheeling in West Virginia, they would be probably treble it as well because they've got the casinos. So it looks like, you know, we're married to the casinos now, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
They're there. But, you know, once we get our fair share, because they would not have the casino if the dog racing and horse racing.
Yeah.
The horse racing has the casinos as well. And any of the tracks that has a casino attached, their prize money has jumped alarmingly because the people will come out and they will go to the races for a while.
Yeah.
But a certain amount of the money from that's bet in the casino is sent to boost the prize funds. So it works when it's fair.
Mike, then just to finish up the interview, what's your next superstar, do you think?
Oh, it's probably my daughters, I have to say that. He's from a really nice litter, actually. There are 7, 8 of them running. They're all up in top grade. But Golden Surf looks as if he's the real deal. He's by Surf Lorien out of Gray's Touch Gold. She won the Derby at Derby Lane, 660-yard bitch. This dog is running at 550. It's a little bit short for him, but from midway home, if he's within 8 to 10 lengths of anything, well then it's good night Irene, because he'll pick him off. And that itself is pretty impressive. But then when his times comes up, I think in his last 11 races he's had 8 fastest of the night times.
Super.
He'll probably run in the Sprint Classic, which is coming up in about 2 weeks' time. And hopefully then we'll go over the 660 with him. But as by Irish standards, he probably wouldn't have enough early pace down to the bend. But by American standards, I mean, he's just phenomenal. They'll love him, you know.
Yeah.
And we brought in some Surf Lorien straws. We've got some nice crashes that are a little bit, you know, sitting back there. The Premier Fantasies that we brought, the semen that we brought in, is really good. But the dog that we really like is the dog of Dolores's. makeshift. I've got 2 litters of those, a litter of 10 and a litter of 8, and they're young, but we really, really love them. And it's been my policy now for the last 3 to 4 years, because we're so intertwined with the 4 or 5 major stud dogs. We will start using the Australian and the Irish stud dogs more and more, and hopefully that keeps us in the flow of things for a few years to come.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for taking.
And thank you.